We've had a few questions about maintenance items on the island, routine stuff like doing a backup and restore, cleaning up old device entries, and that type of thing. Island has a menu entry specifically for that. Let's go over to the main menu and choose Upkeep. Now, starting from the top, we have Auto Cleanup. This controls the automatic deletion of device entries for devices that haven't been seen on the network in a certain amount of time. You can control that either globally by choosing all devices, in which case that'll what you choose here will apply to every device known by the island. You can change this for new devices only. Now, new devices meaning devices that you have not clicked the save button on, brought up, looked at the entry, assigned a name to it if you wish, and so on, and clicked save. So new devices are basically devices that have not yet been identified in the Island app. Then you can also choose this on a per interface basis. So let's take a look at this. You'll notice that I have one cleanup entry defined, and that's for my guest network. I click on this. I have it set to automatically remove any devices on this interface, meaning specifically my guest network, if that device has been inactive for at least 1 week. And by inactive, we mean that the device has not been seen on the network in that amount of time. The guest network is an ideal example of where you would use this because you may have people coming and going on your guest network all the time. This is especially true if you're using it in a commercial environment where you have a guest network available to your customers. You don't probably want to keep track of all of the devices that come and go on the network there, at least not on a permanent basis. So you can have the island automatically delete those devices, as I have done, however often you wish. And I've got it set to 1 week, but you can choose any interval, number of days, number of weeks, or number of months. This second button down here, include assigned devices. What that means is if a device has been assigned to a particular user or group, then by default, of course, those will be deleted along with any others. But if you'd rather not, you can enable this setting, and devices which have been assigned to a user or a group will not be automatically deleted. So, for example, if you had a guest user or someone on your guest network that's a regular, you wanted to assign special policies to them, whatever, you can go ahead and change this setting, enable it, and because it's been assigned to a user or a group, it won't be automatically deleted. And then, of course, when you're done, just go down here and click Save. So again, you can do that on a global basis, only on unidentified devices, or on devices on a particular interface. Now, the next entry on this page is for scheduled events. Now, when you create an event in the schedule, which is covered in another video, you can have these, well, events that are in that are scheduled can be one-time events or they can be recurring events. Either way, once an event has passed, or in the case of a recurring event, once the last instance of that event has passed, you may not care about them anymore. The island can delete those for you automatically. On my island, you'll notice that I have it set so that scheduled events are automatically removed 2 weeks after the last event. And again, it makes a note here that if it's a repeated event, a scheduled event, it's deleted 2 weeks after the final event in that schedule. So just set enable it with this switch here, set the number of weeks that you're interested in, and click Save. Next item, and of course, people ask about this a lot, is the auto update. The island will automatically check for updates if you allow it to and apply those updates. That's done by default from the factory every day at 3 a.m. If you want to change that, simply click here under Auto Update. Now, first of all, you can disable auto updates entirely. You can just turn that off. The island will still notify you through its notification mechanism if an update is available, but if auto updates are disabled, that's all it will do. It will not apply them automatically. If you turn this on, the island will apply those updates automatically. You can choose the time. The default from the factory is 3 a.m. local time, but you can set that for whatever time you want. You can also choose which days you want that to happen. For example, in a commercial environment where you are using the device during the week, maybe you don't want it to apply updates during the week automatically, just in case something changed or there's a problem. You wouldn't want it to happen in the middle of certain operations. So you can say, okay, I only want this to update on 3 a.m. on Fridays or Saturdays, or whatever you like. You can choose the days, you can choose the time, and so on. And then when you're done, just click save. I'm going to discard this because I want to keep the 3 a.m. every day. You'll notice we have a reboot button. This is kind of an interesting thing here. The developers, when the island was being, first designed, didn't want to include a reboot button on there. It said that thing is reliable. Why would we need a reboot button? And well, I agree with them to some extent. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever had to reboot my island at home when I was running on production firmware. Now, I have had to do it a time or two when we were doing, alpha or beta firmware because of a problem or whatever. But the island is very reliable. However, the reason this was finally put in here was pretty much at the request of the support people, because if you call your internet provider and report a problem, what's the first question they ask you? Did you reboot your router? So we provided an easy way to do this. If you want to reboot your router manually, simply tap here and it will reboot. Of course, you can also go in and just unplug it and plug it back in, but this may be a lot more convenient. Backup and restore. It always is a good idea to back up your island so that you don't lose configuration if it fails or if you need to replace it for some reason. We hope that never happens. But if you do, and you get the island replaced under RMA or what have you, if you have a backup, you can restore the backup from your previous island and not lose anything. This is all very easy to do. Uh, Go to the Upkeep menu, go down here to Backup Island. Now, I will say this, the look and feel of the backup is slightly different on the native app versus the web app, but it's very similar and you'll have no trouble with it. This is the web app here. So I'll show you how this works on the web app. Now, the first question it says is, do you want to include history in your backup? History on the island includes things like, the websites that the various devices have accessed, utilization, reports for the various devices and for your interfaces and so on. Those are all considered history items. Now, by default, this is turned off, and the reason is a backup without history is very fast. In fact, I'm going to show that to you in a minute. It just takes a few seconds to do a backup, and the file is fairly small. If you include history, we can turn this on and we can tell it we do want to include history and how much. We could say X number of days or weeks. Then history data will be included in that backup. Should give you a warning here, though. That can significantly increase both the time of the backup, time it takes to do the backup, as well as the size of the backup file. So if you're only worried about keeping the configuration of your island and the knowledge of all the devices and users and groups and so on, you really don't need history. If you like to keep history, you can certainly enable that. Just be aware that the it's going to take longer and the backup file is going to be bigger. So once I've selected that as appropriate, I click backup and there it's done. As you can see, a backup without history is very fast. Now, where do I want to save that file? So I'll just click Save As, and we're going to put it in this folder here that I already have created. I'll click Save, and we're done. So that's how you back up your island. Now, you can restore your backup by clicking Restore Island here. And it will, this will overwrite the current configuration, history files, and everything with the data that was restored. If I click Restore here, it's going to ask me for a file, and I can go in here and search for that file. I'm in the wrong directory right now, but I can search for that file and simply restore it from here. Um, that's not needed very often unless for some reason you've just gone in and made so many changes and it's like, oh my goodness, I've really messed up my configuration. Let me just restore from a backup. And it's not a bad idea to make a backup change, backup of your island before you make major changes like that. So you can do that if needed. More often, though, what a backup is used for is if your island were to fail for some reason and you get a replacement, you can restore that replacement onto the new island. In fact, the process of installing a brand new island on your network, it will ask you if you have a backup, and if so, you can restore from the previous island's backup. So that's what a backup's for. And you'll notice here it says the last backup time was done at January 8th of 2026 at 2:45:55 p.m. And that's the upkeep menu.